I fell into a bunch of different individual conversations that private conversation with people that kind of were nice, and it always it reminds me of like how the universe operates into what we call synchronicity. We don't really know why it works, but it does. But it's the understanding that we're moving in the right direction. That's how I look at it. So when I see a synchronistic moment, it means stay on the right track, and that's like the little moments you get when you realize, and they're actually on that.
The synchronicities to me, it's
more the breadcrumb. It's
you
actually
see you're involved. You're playing along.
Yeah, and you actually can see how everything
is
exists.
unfolding.
Yeah, and the conclusion that I come to is we're all connected. Everything is connected, and synchronicity gets to allow us to see that.
Well, the thing about synchronicity is people will often try to give a meaning to it, and something Frank and I want people to see is that is a story. So giving a meaning to something like when the clock says 11:11, it means this. That is a story that the mind has created that you will experience. And it will come to a reasoning why that is truth. So look at it from that perspective. These synchronistic moments, like when you look at the clock, or these different, you'll be thinking about focusing on something and it will materialize and you'll experience it. The reason these happened are just showing you how much you're in control, how much
you're aware of consciousness.
You're conscious. It's showing you, hey, yes, you're playing along. That's more of what, and even it's not a reason why.
Yeah, but even like what we're talking about here can be narrowed down to a story.
Absolutely, that's what this entire show is just a story.
Yeah, when you're telling a story, make sure it's a preferential one. That's all we're saying.
But that's the truth.
It's most people like, because
you can give any meaning to a synchronistic moment,
So I believe, did I ever tell you this story? I don't know if I ever talked about it on a podcast, but since I was like a young kid, when I say young kid, probably teenager, the number 38 was something that it was so freaking obvious. It'd show up in the weirdest places. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know what to make of this, right? And I'm like 38. So I remember, I'm talking about 17, 18 years old when I started to know this. I'm like, that's just weird. And I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, that keeps showing up. Well, when I was 38 years old, I thought there was a possibility I was going to die.
I'm really glad you didn't focus on that.
So I remember like August 18th, because my birthday is August 19th. It's like,
this is it.
No, it was funny. Like I already, the whole year, like when I would think about it, I'm like, I'm 38, I could die. But when August 18th came, right before I turned 39, I was like, fuck, I got like 6 hours left. I'm going to die. And I woke up. I'm like, I didn't mean I was going to die. So I had to shift the meaning to something else. And it was just funny.
That's it. It's just our mind playing tricks.
But I literally, I didn't swear. I'm like, I was at the point in my life where I'm like, if I'm going to die, this is good. 38, God gave me a signal and here it is. And
it's funny how our mind does that.
Yeah,
we make up reasonings behind things. All they are is showing us we're on the path.
Yeah, I actually I upped my life insurance that year.
Is that for real?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I think I had like,
awesome.
I think I had like a regular life insurance, like $250,000. I upped it to $1 million. I'm like, all right, hey,
that is so funny.
My kid's gonna cash out, you know.
Hey,
Daddy left you something.
I was gonna say, at least you're doing it right. That's so funny.
I'm still here.
That's it, man. We live our lives playing these stories like that, but we're just kind of playing it out. Like that's why people refer to karma. You're playing out your subconscious thoughts. You're playing out your imagination.
Well, that is the key. It's your imagination. So when you actually control your imagination, you actually imagine what it is you would like to see. And let's dive into this, because there is actually a sequence of things you do within imagination, and I want to dive into this and kind of take it all over the place today. But when I talk to people about imagination, everyone I know has heard this phrase, this statement, this axiom, if you will. Everything that is was once imagined. So everything that exists right now, prior to its existence, had to be in an imaginative form, and then was then solidified out into the physical world by individuals or a individual or collective individuals. That being said, your imagination is the future manifestation. So but the thing is, you can imagine the world's coming to an end, and you can do all this stuff and actually create the feeling to it. But what we're talking about here, obviously, on perspective shift, is controlling your imagination. Now, when you go into imaginative thought, you picture how your life want to be, and it's going to resemble something you've already seen, but then you're going to amplify it because you haven't experienced it, you know? So when you go into the state of imagination and you can fully feel that you're actually in that, and I tell people if it's about business, imagine yourself already 10 years into a successful business, not like woven towards it, but actually in it. And get to the point where you really feel it and believe it, even though your senses don't see it. Because your senses aren't seeing it, because if you're actually seeing it, it's not an imagination, it's a replication of an imagination. So for some people, this take a little time. That's why I always tell people, start with something that you can easily imagine that you haven't experienced, that you can get to, and start with that. And when you see that works, again, there is nothing bigger.
It's game on.
The game is on. Because we create the severity and the minuscule in life. The universe doesn't see it that way. You know, everything's equal in the universe. We're the ones who put the pressure on. So when you get into a state of imagination, seeing yourself living this supreme life, and you manifest, you get into this place of feeling the feeling of it, and you get like this hair standing up back of your neck, and you see the image. In that moment, drop the image, and don't try to figure out how, but hold on to the feeling, and even let the feeling fleet away, and then go about your day. That feeling, like when I get excited about something, is when I get up early in the morning and, clean out my closet. You know what I'm saying? Like seriously, and I actually enjoy cleaning out my closet, or I spend an extra hour at the gym that I normally wouldn't have. Or doing something I like, I find more time to do it. Even though that wasn't part and parcel, well, it wasn't seemingly part of my imagination, it actually is part and parcel of it in a degree when you see it. Because we don't know what's going to happen. So when I get into this imaginative state and I feel the feeling of what it's going to be like to actually experience that thing, it generates a frequency or feeling right now of excitement. And when I have that excitement, I want to move forth and do stuff. So when you move forth and do stuff like clean out your closet and whatever it is you're compelled to do, all of a sudden when you step into this imaginative field, it could be 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, 6 days later, it doesn't matter. All of a sudden you realize why you cleaned out your closet. It correlates. It's really interesting because I've had this happen where something happened a week after I imagined it, or something happened 6 years after it happened. And I remember it happened 6 years after I had imagination. I wrote it down and I really felt I was going to get it. And then I forgot about it. And it wasn't like 6.5, almost 7 years later when I realized for a whole year I was living that thing that I imagined years ago. And I'm like, holy cow. It happened so subtle that I forgot that I even had this imaginative thought about it 6 years ago. I almost forgot about it. If you keep having to go to bed every night and picture and imagine it, you're actually pushing it away. One time, generate the feeling. And then move off that feeling in that moment and then see where it takes you.
It's weird that the mind does that because we will picture an event so drastically different than what we're currently experiencing and say, that's what I want, without ever experiencing it, without knowing the ramifications behind what that entails, and what it means, and we say, no, I want that. That's better. That's where the phrase, the grass is always greener comes from. You don't think about the things, you just, like money is the easiest to bring up, I want millions. Okay, well, you want that mansion. Well, let's go over the maintenance and upkeep of a mansion. Now, are you going to be tied to a desk all day long working and not even getting to enjoy this mansion? Would you much rather be in a $450,000 house with no bills, and you get to live. You see, there's different levels of this, and the mind says, "Oh, I want this because it's big, it's shiny. That's what's in the movies. That's what's in media."
But the thing is if you're king over your imagination, and like again, we're not like what Mike's talking about. This variances, but at the same time, if I had a 15,000 square foot mansion, I would have people working on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that would be, like, in other words, what Mike's talking about is if you have this grand imagination and all of a sudden you start like, holy shit, who's going to mow the lawn? You're actually defeating your imagination. Like,
but this is what the mind does.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It
starts to defeat you. So now next thing you know, you're back living in the place. You're like, well, fine, I like my 400 square foot apartment.
But this is what we do. We go, I want this, and then we say, wait a second.
Yeah.
You know, and we kind of jump back into stuff. But I mean, so the grass is always greener. We want all this stuff. The way it unfolds is not always going to be how the imagination perceives.
Well, the thing is, that's why in the key of the imagination, you imagine it already having it, not how do I get to it. So a lot of people use their imagination how to get to it. That's why when they run into the thing, well, if I get this big 10,000 square foot mansion or whatever it is, who's going to, how many bathrooms do I have to clean? Now you're actually trying to figure out how to get there. I'm saying already picture yourself living in the 10,000 square foot mansion, and everything is copacetic. Because when you're already imagining from the place, you're not trying to figure out how to get there. You're already there. And then the world, the universe will send you a map. Just like my GPS. I put an address in my GPS to a place I've never been before, because if I have, I wouldn't have to put the address in. It already knows how to get me there. My imagination is only on the beach. The GPS will get me there. I don't have to figure that stuff out. So the GPS is a fractal of our imagination. It's all it is. And our internal guidance system is part of our imagination. Let it do the work. It is never our job to figure it out. That's why let go of the image, because chances are it's going to turn out very similar to the image, because you have to have a recognizable thing. I don't picture myself in the beach and end up in Alaska. That'd be wacky way of living life. It doesn't happen that way. I choose the theme in which I want to see. But if I wanted a white sandy beach and I wasn't too specific, I might end up in Acapulco, and I'll be okay with that. But I end up in Acapulco, okay, now I want to get specific. I want to be in Wailea, Maui. Well, you won't end up in Acapulco if you actually were specific as being in Maui down in Wailea. You'll end up there. Now, what specific hotel or place? Well, the first time out, you might end up somewhere. But then you get even specific. I want this house in this neighborhood. So you might not get the exact house, but get the house next to it, so to speak. You could really narrow this stuff down.
That's why it's funny how vision boards, people do stuff like that.
Yeah, vision boards are great.
Yeah,
but I suggest when you have a vision board, do not have it out where you could see it every day, because after a while it reminds you don't have it. Like, you literally have to, it's almost like mailing a letter. Once you dump it in the mailbox, you got to walk away and go about your day. But can you imagine sitting near the mailbox waiting for the mailman to come? Hey, you want to get that letter and get it going? And give me a call every time it moves to the next city. Like, you're going to go, you'll die of frustration before the person even gets the letter to even respond to you. I'm like, it's just a nutty way. Once you put it out into the universe, let it go. But in the act of putting it out, you're going to generate this amazing feeling. When you have that amazing feeling now, it's going to compel you to do something. Follow that. Go do that. Don't sit near the mailbox. Go forth and see where it takes you. And as it takes you, you'll see the sequence of things that you do end up. And those aren't the causations, but that's leading you there. Just like when I want to go to California, some beach in California, the GPS will tell me, make a right at the end of the block. And once I make the right, I must go and make the right. And once I make the right, then it will offer another bit of information. And when I actually act on that bit of information, it gives me more, and gives me more, it gives me more, it gives me more. Next thing you know, I'm on the beach in California.
And Frank's, use of the GPS, guys, that's our internal guidance system. We all have this.
Yeah.
Call it intuition, call it spirit, call it God, call it whatever you want. but we all possess this.
It's